Welcome to the deep dive. We take all those articles and excerpts, research notes you've given us, and extract the most important bits.
Sounds fun.
For this deep dive, you wanted to get up to speed on Tenaya Jayne's Feral series.
Okay.
And luckily, you provided the character guide and some early chapters from Book 2.
Perfect.
To help unpack all this, I've got an expert on fantasy literature here to shed some light.
Happy to be here.
It's a world called Regia, with vampires, werewolves, dryads, even someone jumping between worlds. Think Game of Thrones meets maybe a bit of Avatar.
Okay.
But trust me, this is its own beast. And we're tackling the question, can love truly conquer all in this world? It seems pretty brutal, even for fantasy.
Brutal is a good word for it. What fascinates me is how Jayne blends classic fantasy beings with these really unique twists.
Right.
These aren't just your cookie-cutter vampires and werewolves. They have complex powers, histories that all get tangled up together.
Yeah.
And love, especially unconventional love, seems to be right at the heart of those tangled webs.
Right off the bat, the character guide throws a lot of names at us. Tesla, who's a half-vampire world jumper wielding lightning. Okay, sign me up.
Sounds pretty cool.
Her mate is a human necromancer, which is apparently unheard of in this world. Talk about a power couple breaking boundaries.
That's a great example of how Jayne sets up this world where love challenges norms from the start. You've also got Rahaxorus, the elf, morally ambiguous, always intriguing, and he's father to Forrest, who's mated to a vampire prince. But this prince chose to make Regia a republic instead of keeping his kingly power.
So we've got unusual couples, power dynamics being upended. Already, I'm sensing love isn't simple in Regia. It's tied to these bigger forces of change.
Absolutely. And that tension between old and new plays out right in the prologue we were given. Someone seeks guidance from the heart of Regia, and it seems peace might be an illusion. But the way Jayne writes this, it's more than just plot setup.
I noticed that too. It's atmospheric, almost poetic. We're introduced to the verdant, which I gather is this circle of crystal trees around the heart. But the character guide mentions their petrified dryad princesses. That's hauntingly beautiful.
Exactly. It ties into that theme of sacrifice that seems to run through everything. The verdant is a constant reminder of a past tragedy, and the heart, this mysterious protector deity, fears what those shadows from the past might bring.
So love exists in this world where peace is fragile, built on sacrifice. Now, we also jump into the werewolf pack. And let's be honest, there's always some drama when werewolves are involved.
Especially when you have a character like Sophie, the princess wolf, butting heads with her sister Lacey. It's classic sibling rivalry, but amplified because it's tied to mating, social standing. Everything in werewolf society seems heightened.
And then there's Ansel's death, a friend to both Sophie and this other werewolf, Tristan, who the guide hints is more than just a friend to Sophie. The werewolves call it an accident, but even in the early chapters, you get the sense that something isn't right.
It raises the question, was Ansel's death truly an accident, or is there something more sinister at play? This event acts as a catalyst, fueling the tension that already exists, especially between Sophie and Tristan.
Yeah, about Tristan. The character guide describes him as charismatic, ambitious, but also possessive. And the way he behaves towards Sophie, it sets off all kinds of alarm bells.
What Jayne does brilliantly is show, not just tell. We see Tristan's manipulation, his controlling behavior, culminating in this horrifying act that binds him to Sophie. It's not just romantic tension, it's about power, control, and the damaging aspects of love.
Sophie is caught in this web of manipulation, and she's clearly struggling, but she's trying to protect her family while navigating this dangerous situation. It's heartbreaking to see her trapped like this.
This is where Jayne's exploration of trauma shines through. It's not just plot, it's about the psychological impact of Tristan's actions. How does he use Sophie's past, her vulnerabilities, to isolate her and make her dependent on him?
It's unsettling, but I can see why you say Jayne is a master at depicting these complex, even dark aspects of love. Now, amidst all this, we also meet Eli, a dryad. And from the guide, he seems like a bit of a loner.
He's described as conflicted, burdened by guilt, but also deeply connected to the heart of Regia. And this connection, coupled with his encounter with the mysterious bird thing, leads him to Sophie, but not in the way you might expect.
He finds her art, hidden away in a cave.
Oh, wow.
It's not love at first sight, it's something deeper.
Oh, okay.
They connect through their shared understanding of pain, beauty expressed in Sophie's art, and Eli's bond with nature.
Their initial connection is a stark contrast to the toxic dynamic between Sophie and Tristan. It suggests that love and Regia can exist in different forms, not just the possessive, controlling kind.
I'm sensing a pattern here. Unconventional couples, Love tied to power struggles, and now two very different expressions of love. It's like Jayne is setting up this complex tapestry where love can be both destructive and healing.
And that's what makes this so compelling. Jayne isn't afraid to explore the multifaceted nature of love, even in a fantastical setting.
So we've got this foundation of complex relationships, hints of danger, and love that seems to be both a weapon and a lifeline. Where do we go from here?
Well, remember that sense of foreboding from the prologue. It seems those shadows are about to emerge, and they're connected to both Tristan and a traitor named Rolf.
Okay, things are about to get interesting. But before we dive into that, let's take a moment to unpack this concept of true faces. What exactly does it mean, and how does it tie into the larger themes of the story?
It's a fascinating concept, this idea of true faces. The source material suggests it's more than just physical appearance. It's about revealing your deepest self, but only to those with a profound connection to you. And it ties into those themes of trust, vulnerability, even sacrifice that we see developing between Sophie and Eli.
So it's almost like a visual representation of the depth of their connection, something that Tristan, with all his manipulation, could never access.
Precisely. And as we delve further into the story, those shadows from the prologue start to take shape. We learned about Tristan's true intentions. He's not just vying for Sophie's affections, he's plotting to overthrow Sabra, the werewolf pack leader. And it gets even more complicated. He's allied with Rolf, a traitor who wants to reignite an ancient conflict between the werewolves and dryads.
Hold on, a war between werewolves and dryads. I mean, we knew there was tension, but this is taking things to a whole new level. What's driving this conflict?
It seems to be rooted in a deep-seated fear and distrust. Remember those petrified dryads, the Verdant? They're a constant reminder of a past betrayal, a time when werewolves turned against the dryads. And Tristan is exploiting this history using shadow sand, a weapon that specifically targets dryads, to further his agenda.
So shadow sand isn't just a random weapon. It's a symbol of this ancient hatred, this potential for destruction that's always lurking beneath the surface of Regia.
Exactly. It represents the dark side of love and loyalty, the way that fear and resentment can poison relationships.
And speaking of poison relationships, Sophie's situation with Tristan takes an even darker turn. She discovers a horrifying secret hidden in his apartment, a secret that reveals the true depths of his depravity.
The discovery of the young dryad's body, murdered by Tristan, shatters any remaining illusions Sophie might have had. It forces her to confront the reality of his cruelty, his willingness to exploit and destroy those he deems weaker.
It's a turning point for Sophie. She realizes she can't stay silent anymore. She has to act to protect herself and those she loves. But how does she even begin to fight back against someone as manipulative and powerful as Tristan?
It's a daunting task. He's isolated her, eroded her self-confidence, made her believe she's powerless, but what he underestimates is Sophie's resilience, her inner strength.
Now let's not forget her mother, Sabra. The character guide describes her as a formidable leader, fierce and protective. Surely she must suspect something's wrong. Why hasn't she intervened?
Sabra is in a difficult position. She's leading a pack where loyalty is paramount, and Tristan has skillfully manipulated the situation to make himself appear blameless. She loves Sophie, but she's also bound by her duty to her pack, and challenging Tristan directly could spark a civil war.
So Sophie is caught between a rock and a hard place, trapped by Tristan, unable to confide in her mother, and facing a potential war that could tear Regia apart. It's almost too much for one person to bear.
But in these desperate circumstances, a new kind of strength emerges within Sophie. She finds an ally in Eli who, while training with Forrest, has been honing his combat skills and deepening his connection to the heart of Regia.
Wait, Eli's training to fight. I thought dryads were more about nature and healing, not combat.
They are, but Eli isn't a typical dryad. His bond with the heart, this ancient source of power, seems to be awakening abilities that no other dryad possesses. He's becoming a protector, a warrior, drawn into the conflict not by choice, but by necessity.
So we've got Sophie, fueled by a desperate need to survive and protect her family, and Eli, whose connection to the heart is transforming him into something more than he ever imagined. They're both on a collision course with destiny, but their paths are so different.
And yet their destinies are intertwined. As the conflict escalates, Sophie and Eli find solace in each other's company. They share their vulnerabilities, their fears, and their growing love for one another blossoms amidst the chaos.
It's a beautiful contrast to the toxic relationship with Tristan. Here, love isn't about possession or control. It's about mutual respect, understanding, a shared sense of purpose.
But their love is a dangerous secret. Sophie is still technically Tristan's prisoner, and any open defiance could have deadly consequences. And Eli, though growing stronger, is still an outsider in the werewolf pack.
It's a forbidden romance, a love that blooms in the shadows, defying the rigid societal norms of Regia. But can their love truly survive in a world that seems determined to tear them apart?
That's the question that drives the narrative forward. And as the tension builds, Tristan, driven by paranoia and a lust for power, decides to launch a preemptive strike against the Dryads.
He unleashes the shadow sand, knowing it will cause a slow and agonizing death. This isn't just a battle, it's an act of genocide.
And in this act of ultimate betrayal, we see the true depths of Tristan's cruelty. He's willing to sacrifice anyone, even his own people, to achieve his goals.
The battle scenes are brutal, chaotic, a whirlwind of violence and despair. Eli witnesses the deaths of his friends, and Sophie, consumed by raging grief, becomes a force of nature.
It's as if the trauma she's endured has unleashed a primal power within her, a strength that even Tristan couldn't anticipate.
But she's not just fighting for revenge. She's fighting to protect those who are left, to prevent Tristan from destroying everything she holds dear.
And as the battle reaches its climax, Sophie and Tristan finally confront each other. It's a clash of wills, a battle for the soul of Regia.
But just as it seems that one of them will fall, a vision, a prophecy perhaps, interrupts the battle. And Tristan, in a moment of stunned silence, seems to be caught in its grip. What is this vision, and how will it impact the fate of Regia?
We're left on a cliffhanger, the
Yeah.
outcome uncertain, the tension almost unbearable. But one thing is clear. The world of Regia will never be the same.
Okay, so we're left with this image of a brutal battle interrupted, a prophecy hanging in the air. I'm dying to know what happens next, especially with Sophie and Eli caught in the middle of it all.
This is where the narrative takes a truly unexpected turn, and those seemingly separate threads start to weave together. Remember Melina, the polyhedron with precognitive visions?
Yeah.
Well, it turns out her visions weren't just personal, they were tied to something larger, something cosmic, and that something seems to be centered around Sophie and Eli.
Melina was barely mentioned in these early chapters, but she clearly plays a bigger role. What exactly does she see that relates to them?
She sees a figure engulfed in flames, a sacrifice that will alter the balance of power in Regia. And as the battle rages, the pieces fall into place, and it becomes clear that the figure in Melina's vision is Sophie.
So Sophie is the sacrifice. But you mentioned earlier that the source material says she survives. How is that possible if she's literally going up in flames?
That's where Eli comes in. In a desperate act of love and sacrifice, he jumps into the flames after Sophie, willing to give his own life to save hers.
Okay, so it's not just a battle for Regia, it's a battle for Sophie's soul. But Eli's a dryad. They're connected to life force, to nature. Could this be more than just a heroic act? Could his powers actually play a part in her survival?
That's precisely what happens. Eli uses his connection to the heart of Regia, channeling life force into Sophie. He's pouring his own essence into her, a risky move, but it's the only way to bring her back from the brink of death.
It's a powerful image, this dryad, using his bond with nature to defy death itself. And it ties back to that concept of true faces. Sophie, through this near-death experience and Eli's sacrifice, undergoes a transformation. She emerges with enhanced powers, a physical manifestation of her true self.
And then this is where the significance of their bond becomes even more apparent. Eli, despite being a dryad, is now able to see Sophie's true face. Remember, dryads aren't supposed to have dust and life mates. They experience love differently.
Right, their connection was already breaking norms. So how does this work? How can he see something no one else of his kind can?
It goes back to that core question we posed. Can love truly conquer all? In this world, the heart of Regia explains that their bond wasn't destiny, it was choice. Sophie chose Eli in the moment of her death, and he chose to sacrifice himself for her. It's love forged not through predestination, but through the fires of shared experience.
So it's not just that their love is unconventional, it's that it redefines the very rules of love in Regia. It challenges the established order, suggesting that love born from choice, from sacrifice, can be even more powerful than destiny.
And that's why the story resonates so deeply. It's not just a fantasy romance, it's a reflection of the human experience. We all make choices, and those choices have consequences, sometimes life-altering ones.
But the story doesn't end there. The balance of power has shifted, and the prophecy still hangs over Regia. What does this mean for Sophie and Eli, and for the future of this world?
The future is uncertain, and that's what makes it exciting. Sophie and Eli have survived, their bond strengthened through fire, but they're entering a new era. They'll face new challenges, new threats, but they'll face them together, their love a beacon in the darkness.
It's a hopeful ending, but it's not without its complexities. They've defied norms, challenged ancient powers, and their actions will have ripple effects throughout Regia. We can only speculate about what those effects might be.
That's the beauty of a well-crafted story. It leaves you wanting more. It sparks your imagination, invites you to consider the possibilities.
We started this deep dive with a simple question. Can love conquer all in a world as brutal as Regia? And while the answer might not be simple, Tenaya Jayne certainly gave us a lot to think about.
It's a testament to the power of love, the resilience of the human spirit, and the enduring appeal of stories that explore the depths of our emotions.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive into the world of Feral. We've explored complex characters, uncovered hidden themes, and delved into the very nature of love itself. We hope you enjoyed the journey, and until next time, keep exploring those worlds, both real and imagined, that spark your curiosity and ignite your passions.